Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to discuss the history of magic. No one really knows how old the pagan religions are. I had just finished a series on the great courses called The Irish Independence, and in those lectures they mentioned the oldest relics found in Ireland, and those relics showed evidence that the people in that time frame worshiped the sun, because the building that was erect had I guess you could call it a skylight, a hole in the roof. It would shine into this building and it would light the entire room. Otherwise the room was mostly dark or completely dark. So yes, paganism is definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest, religions, considering that alone. And back then, people probably worshipped the sun because it was used for survival purposes. Magic was more focused on needs of survival. I mean, way back then, they didn't have the technology we have today. They didn't have computers. They didn't have refrigerators. They didn't have a grocery store. They had to go out and find their food or grow all their food. And they had to build their houses from whatever materials were available to them in their area. So it was very important for them to work with nature and appreciate nature. And they showed much respect for the earth, trees, plants that grew around them, the sun that gave them light and warmth, and the moon and the stars that gave them light during the daytime, and the water that kept them alive. So they were very close to their deities and asked them to help to find food and shelter in order for them to survive. So magic had, I don't know if I'd want to say more meaning back then, but it was more important for survival back then than it is today. There have also been different monuments that have been discovered all over the world that were constructed to worship the changing of the seasons. For example, the Avebury Stone Circle in Wiltshire in southwest England, forgive me for any mispronunciation. It was built over 4,500 years ago, and the purpose it was built is unknown, but during the summer solstice, if you're in just the right place at just the right time, you will see this. The Newgrange, again, I may be pronouncing these wrong, tomb near, sorry, I have to look at my notes, Drogheda, County Meath, Ireland, has a similar phenomenon. Now, phenomenon means basically a unique event, experience, thing, something that doesn't happen every day, something special. Around the winter solstice, or Yule, there are a few days during the sunrise where the entire monument will be lit up, and it'll last for about 17 minutes. And this tomb is over 5,000 years old. Now, original paganism came to an end by the rise of Christianity during the mid-1st century. When Christianity first started, it wasn't very popular, and most people didn't like it. But over time, more and more people began to accept the beliefs of the Christian church, and they gained a huge following until they were finally the most popular religion of them all. Christians had a hard time in the beginning, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were teaching people that everyone else was wrong and only they were right. That their Christian God is the only God and no other God exists. Well, people didn't like that. And so it took a while for their belief system to become popular and for other people to start enough for them to get enough followers and become a big group. Now, once that changed, and now Christianity was the most popular and the biggest religion of them all, and outweighed those following paganism, they now started to bully those of pagan beliefs. And they tried to force them to follow their Christian beliefs. They tore down buildings, statues, and other monuments they deemed evil. And their definition of evil was anything and everything that did not serve to worship their God. So, some monuments they kept, some buildings they kept, but they changed them. They basically put crosses on them, which is their symbol, and made them into Christian statues or monuments to serve their purpose. Anything that was pagan and non-Christian, anything they couldn't destroy, they reclaimed as their own. Many statues and shrines had crosses placed on them. The one being the Celtic goddess Breed. She was renamed Saint Bridget because the Irish people were very close to the goddess Breed, and they were strong followers of her, so Christians felt that if they turned her into a saint, the pagans could keep their goddess technically, but she would now was worshipped God, so in turn they would start worshipping their god. And certain pagan holidays were also not so much taken. Christians created holidays around pagan holidays to also as another means of control, like Christmas and Yule, Halloween and Samhain, Easter and Ostara. They created these Christian holidays to eventually get more people to merge from paganism into Christian beliefs by turning these holidays into Christian holidays. They were very sneaky about it. Christianity basically took the goddess and made her Saint Mary, Saint Bridget. She was a strong woman in Christian beliefs, but she was still beneath God. And the horned god, they completely destroyed him. They made him evil. They made him the devil. They made him out to be the bad guy. So that was another way in which Christians tried to destroy pagan beliefs. Pagans had a god and a goddess. Well, let's keep the goddess, but put her underneath their god and make it so the goddess, in whatever names they choose to use, Mother Mary or Saint Bridget, and in Mary's situation, make her the mother of the Son of God. So she's still a very important person in the Christian beliefs, but she is still beneath their God. She is not someone to be worshipped. And then the horned god, well, we'll just make him the bad guy. That's how we're going to get rid of him. We're just going to completely make him evil. He is a bad person. All he wants to do is hurt people and condemn them to hell. So that's how they tried to destroy him. So he couldn't compete with their god. But, I mean, the horned god isn't evil. He doesn't want to hurt people. He is a protective and caring and warm god. And it got to the point where paganism became illegal. It was against the law. Now, after all these changes took place, people began to fear anyone who called themselves a pagan or a witch. And pagans had to hide who they were and keep their way of life a secret to save their families and themselves. But pagans didn't want to forget their way of life, and some found safe ways to pass down their beliefs from generation to generation. Some by word of mouth. That's a very popular Druid practice. And others write down their rituals, their practices in journals, and we call those journals a grimoire or a book of shadows. I have a book of shadows. I'm interested in Druidry, but I still have a book of shadows. See? It's just a green zip-up binder, but I mean, and it's got candle wax stains on it. But a grimoire doesn't have to be something fancy. It can be anything you want it to be. It's just a safe place for you to write down your thoughts, your dreams, your practices, whatever you want to write in it, you write it in there. Now, Christianity was not able to take over the entire world and just rid the world of all of the religious beliefs. Paganism was still the most popular religion in many countries, and slowly over time, paganism began to gain a foothold in the ruling Christian countries. For example, in the United States, we are mostly a Christian country. But paganism has been coming back, it is back, it is here, and though I haven't been a pagan for very long, the more I have learned, the more I've realized how strong of a belief system it is, how many pagans there are out there. It's not as small as we think, we just are more hush-hush about it than other religions are. Especially since paganism is still very misunderstood, and even though paganism is still a very misunderstood spiritual belief, it is no longer illegal. And we are able to practice paganism and witchcraft. I say openly, and it would be nice if we could fully practice openly, but it depends on your community. Depending on what type of community it is, those communities are more open about certain things and more closed about other things. It just depends on what your community structure is like. In my immediate family, paganism is very misunderstood and not so accepted. But with my friends, they don't really care. Everyone just does their own thing. No, it's not so judgmental. Not much more open-minded. And pagans still suffer in our current legal system, unfortunately. And we are not given the same benefits or treatments as non-pagans. But it does continue to get better for the pagan community, and it will continue to get better as we continue to stand up for ourselves. It's very important to stand up for what you believe in. What we need to learn, though, from our past and how Christians were prosecuted when they first started, how pagans were prosecuted when Christians took over, and how pagans are still more prosecuted, though Christians are too, depending again on what community you live in. Everyone suffers somewhere. What we need to learn from our past, though, is the negative consequences of spreading fear and hate. No matter how people are different from you, you shouldn't try to hurt them and you shouldn't hate them. We should never want to harm another person, physically or emotionally. Everyone is free to be who they are, and what they are. And we need to learn to love and respect each other for who and what we are. We are all individuals with unique and special talents. And our intentions should always be for good and to harm none. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Blessed be.